Well, welcome again, everyone. We're excited. Our little team of three is very excited to share with you today some of the work we've done and what we've learned and what we still need to learn. I want to introduce our team real quick. If you could forward to the next slide. Great. And you've heard from Mari Lou today. Mari Lou is an extension director at University of Illinois. She is located in Northeast Illinois. Anindita Das, Dr. Das is a strategist at Iowa State University, and she formerly was with Extension. We miss her very much. And myself, my name is Mitch Mason. I'm an extension professor with the University of Maine. I am not on campus. I am located in Southern Maine in the greater Portland area. So this is our team. And before we get into the heart of the agenda, we wanted to share with you a little bit of information about our organization. We are part of Cooperative Extension. And Cooperative Extension, you can forward it. Thank you. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Cooperative Extension. Some of you may have never heard of it. Some of you may have been a part of it. So I'm going to ask if you've heard of it or you've been a part of it, if you could put one or two words in the chat box that describes what you think Cooperative Extension is. And we're not going to test you or grade you. So just share anything in the chat box about your experience. So Cooperative Extension in the United States is over 100 years old. The role of Extension is to translate research from campuses down to the local level and vice versa to share local knowledge and traditions and put it into research. So it's a two-way information stream. Cooperative Extension in the U.S. is found in every county, parish, and borough in the U.S., including all of the territories. And it consists of thousands of educators. Some are faculty, some are direct education staff, some are administrative, and 2 million plus trained volunteers spread across the country. So I see some comments have heard of Extension, local service and outreach. Outreach is critical. Great. This is a quick diagram just to show you Extension is a federal, state, and local organization. All three are important to its existence. The federal level is more about research. The state level, Extension is housed at a land-grant university. There's 106 land-grant universities in the US. And on the local level, which is where a lot of the education and outreach happens, every county has an Extension office. Next one. So you'll also hear us talk about 4-H, and 4-H is a subset of Extension, and all three of us work with 4-H. It's the youth component of Cooperative Extension. It started 120 years ago. It has over 7 million youth members in the US. It's rooted in positive youth development. And when we say it has thousands of staff and volunteers, one thing we want to mention is that the staff, we have amazing staff across the country. It does not always represent or reflect the demographics of the youth we serve or the youth we want to serve, which leads us into the work that we are doing, which is to build the capacity of the thousands of staff members to better work with immigrant, refugee, and asylum-seeking youth. So, can you forward to the next slide? And I also wanted to mention, I use the term land grant. You may or may have not heard that before. Every state and territory has at least one land grant. And I want to recognize the term land grant, both as a verb and as a term. It reflects something that happened in the history of our country. Land grant was the taking of land from indigenous people in the Midwest and West, and then using that land, giving it to universities to fund their initial campus and their initial research. So 100 years ago, 120 years ago, we know land grant meant taking land from indigenous folks, and we just want to recognize that. And so a subset of 4-H in the group whose work you'll see today is called the Immigrant and Refugee Youth Champions Group. It's a group of 9 extension staff and former staff, 3 of which are here today. It's part of a larger collective within our organization to enhance inclusion and belonging. And together we represent 8 land-grant institutions. You can see them listed there. So that's just a little bit of background about who we are and why we are doing the work we are doing.
Okay. Today, we will be covering 5 topic areas. One is what are some social conditions that staff experience on the ground? So when staff are out there to serve these audiences, what are some things staff see? And so that's their experience. And then we also want to share with you what are some of the social, cultural, and emotional conditions and how they are nested in and impacts the immigrant and refugee youth. For that, we are using some theoretical lenses to answer our quest. And then we're going to be talking about some of the promising practices for building competency among our staff, what we should be doing, and then what are we doing to build capacity for staff, specifically in this group that Mitch just shared about. And then we'll be talking about what has been some early impact, the reflections from staff, because just kind of sharing, we have limited capacity because we are all volunteering for this role. And so we have limited capacity in what and how much we can do. But, this could be definitely a great research project to understand how much we have impacted our staff in their journey through the work we are doing. But before we get ahead with our presentation, we are hoping that if you could share with us 3 facts that you know about refugee and immigrant youth or their families that you would like to share with us. And, just like how you entered your name, you can still just go ahead and enter your ideas and thoughts into this box. And
I see most of the people in there, so I think people are using it.
Awesome. And I think the best part is that you all can get the slides, the copy of it, and you can also see and connect with other people that are sharing their connection. So that's the reason we do it this way, because it kind of provides us a nice connection and community after we leave also.
And if you like, you can include your comments in the chat box. I know it does get a little bit difficult to type on the slide with everybody in there.
Yeah, Mary-Lou can definitely bring those comments and update the slide. And if you would read them, that would be kind also, at least few.
Yeah, they said they may need a guide on the site to navigate systems that are new, willingness to thrive, grow, collaborate, upskill their education and careers. They often bring many skills, education, and training with them that are valuable in their new community.
Thank you. Okay. So, and just I know I see people from different countries in this presentation. Please know that the information we are sharing are very much located, very local to US. And so here is first thing first, people need to know what's the number or the size of immigrant population. So it's actually, it's home to more than 44 million immigrants from almost every country in the world, and each with diverse sets of needs and experiences. Immigrants arrive in this country with vast diversity of religious, linguistic, educational, and ethnic backgrounds. They also come to this country for a variety of reasons. Some of us are seeking work or education. Some of us are fleeing violence. Others are reuniting our family members. More than half come from Latin America, but a quarter of them also come from Asia. So it's so diverse. So we just wanted to be a little dramatic, and we just wrote that there. Again, going for the next part of it, what staff experience on the ground. So Mary-Lou, take it away.
Thank you, Ani. So as Ani just mentioned, we all come with from different places, from different backgrounds. And staff as a staff member, we may be faced with confusion, and at times it gets overwhelming with the various inflows of migrants. So I'll be talking a little bit about the first generation and second generation migrants and their individual challenges. For example, I was brought in as a child. My parents were undocumented. I had to parent my parents navigate the new country, the new language, the new culture. And on the other hand, Annie came in with visa, and it was based on her education. Therefore, her needs and her challenges were very different than mine. The first generation migrants could be described as those that are born outside of the US, but include a complex array of individuals such as students. Time and circumstances of arrival have clear developmental, acculturative, and linguistic impacts on this population. Regularized status are those who have a greater potential for inclusion, which may lead to stabilization of their migrant status. And then liminal status are those who are in limbo. They have no sense of whether they will be able to stay or return to their home country. This may include students that are undocumented, that are DACA recipients, asylum seekers, or unaccompanied minors. Next. So refugees make up relatively a small proportion of our migrant origin population. However, most have experienced some sort of traumatic event at some point in the journey, either prior to their migration, during their journey, or after arriving at the receiving country. Or in some cases, at each of the 3 points. Some potential challenges include post-traumatic disorders and psychological difficulties. Next. We also have newcomers. These students are defined as foreign-born students who enter public schools within the last 3 years. Many, if not most, are acquiring English and are also adapting to a new land and educational system. They face a series of acculturative stressors and social emotional challenges. These acculturative stress is defined as reduction in health status, including psychological, somatic, and social aspects of individuals who are undergoing acculturation and for which there is evidence that these health phenomena are related systematically to acculturation. Next. So students with interrupted or inconsistent formal education. These students have not been exposed to consistent formal education, and they have attended schools in the United States for less than 12 months. And upon initial, they are 2 or more years below grade level in literacy in their home language, and or 2 more years below grade level in mathematics due to inconsistent or interrupted schooling before arrival into the United States. Next. Second generation, these are children of migrant that share some common features with the first generation. Parents are from a country of origin other than the host country, and as such, bring them different cultural practices and expectations, as well as often bringing another language. Second generation is protected by birthright, citizenship. Some of these students live in mixed status families. Family may also not access services to which they are entitled as birthright citizens, like preschool, libraries, and healthcare. They may not be aware of the entitlements or are not concerned about, are concerned about exposure. Next. I'll turn it over to Annie.
Okay. So you heard a little bit of some of the different types of immigrants and some of their socio-emotional and cultural needs as they come in. That's what the staff sees as soon as they want to work with these audiences. If you could share with us what resources and assets do immigrants, potentially benefit our community and how? If you could share some thoughts like, that these families, these parents, these youth bring that benefits our community. Because
you can include them in the chat or in the link provided, or open your mic if that's possible.
Yeah. Because, definitely they're changing our communities and our neighborhoods and our schools. So what do you think? What resources or assets do they bring?
Ani, there's also a really good question in the chat box. After we're done with this slide, maybe we could answer that question.
Okay. What's the question?
Okay, I'll go ahead and ask it. So, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Please tell me if I'm doing it wrong. Shamel is asking, what, according to you, us panelists, need to be the role of state authorities in effective professional development and integration of young migrants, refugees, and young people from low socioeconomic groups of population? And I'll read that again. What needs to be the role of state authorities in effective professional development and integration of young migrants, refugees, and young people from low socioeconomic groups of population?
I think it's a very good question, and that's probably the question we try to answer in our presentation. You asked local, who's the group that they are talking about?
It's asking us the role of state authorities.
Yeah, state authorities. And yeah, in some ways we are the state, we all have employment with the state government as educators from public institutions, land grant institutions, but then also that's, providing cultural competency training, providing some things like this, where you can provide understanding of the group, where they're coming from, and that not assuming that, that all are the same. And I think that's what you'll be getting in this presentation. I don't want to.
Ani, Rosa Moran Delgado raised her hand.
Yeah.
Yes. About your question, I don't know if you can hear me well.
We could hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. About your question, that I think refugees or people, asylum seekers, they have a lot of in their shoulder. They have education, background, different kind of training. Also, they have post-traumatic disorder, and they have a lot of ideas also from their country. And most of the time, for example, I'm speaking about my experience because I'm living in Europe, and when I was seeing that I'm here, I was trying to move forward to deal with a lot of stress, and also try to learn the new language because I'm from Belgium, and here I have to learn Netherlands, and that is still a challenge. But one of the things that I want to do is try to change something in IT, or try to collaborate to make a better place or a better world. We refugees want to really change something, to make the difference, to show that we can do it, and try to make the thing better. I think this is my answer to your question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think let's move forward. Okay, so as we said before that, when we did our work, our primary goal was to see that how the whole concept about refugees, immigrants have been used or have been understood, or how our work, where does our work come from? Because we are not people who do not come with some form of ideas within us, and these ideas are connected to some theoretical framework that our organizations use and that people use, so that that's how they form their answers to. And so it's very important that we understand that migration is a very is a transformative process, and that it's profound implications for the families as well as for the young people, and has lasting impact on the social, emotional, cultural development of these individuals also. Because when you are removing family, that's before coming to this country, all our lives are like we have families, we have neighborhoods, we have customs, we have jobs, we have all connections with about our communities. But then what happens is that with migration, all we're stripping ourselves off with the significant social ties, our extended families, our friends, our neighbors. So I really like the concept that's been used by reimagining migration. Like all the many theoreticians talk about this, but I really like the way reimagining migration talks about this. They talk about the migration journey is the key to understanding any immigrant and refugee community. That's like, how their life was before and how the journey is. And, even if immigrants coming from the same country often differ so much in their legal statuses and the level of family support and personal experiences, that impacts their experience in this country and in their journey. For example, understanding immigration, educators need to understand this journey, this story that is behind the person, behind that 44 million, that number. What is the story? What's the narrative that exists? Because that will give us better way of solving situations, solving problems. For example, I'm an immigrant. I come from India. I wanted to study in this country. I had all the legal paperwork. My journey was like taking the flight and reaching here. Then I had my educational institution people from there waiting for me to welcome me. And so my journey, if I would say, it would be the stress of travel or leaving my family behind. But for example, migrants leaving Central America's Northern Triangle, like El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, which United Nations calls one of the most dangerous parts of the world, are often running for their lives. These individuals often face gang violence, threats, domestic violence, sexual violence in their home countries. And during this perilous journey into United States, they have to endure extreme weather, terrain, starvation, thirst, and manipulation, sexual assault by smugglers who pay to facilitate the trip. So depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder are more common, and mental health issues among migrants who have such traumatic experiences. So the adjustment in this country will again vary who is coming from where, what was their history or what was their background when they came here. So for others, like, so upon arrival, I would say then immigrant and refugees from around the world navigate the immigration system. We all have to do that, like finding a job, overcoming language or cultural barriers, missing home. We all have to do that. But at this stage, many immigrants of color or refugees who come from, from countries of color, or like, people who look different, are more affected by mental health issues. Others, when they face more established or enrollment challenges in school and acculturation identity issues. But people who come from or have much more traumatic experiences in this journey have much more of a traumatic experiences in this country also. So as educators, we need to do not assume that just because they had a traumatic experience, Central American are not educated. But the education level just varies among the non-immigrants also. So that's something to keep. The Migration Policy Institute has great articles on these. And so we really use that as a great resource. Another common assumptions is that youths who are coming from Asian origin are very well adjusted. They require less mental health support than other students. And as a result, students are less likely than Latinx peers receive referrals to school-based mental health care providers, even after controlling number of factors, including externalizing problems and academic performance. So it's kind of like, you have to understand that as educators, we need to listen to these stories. How was their journey? Just because they come from certain country, we cannot assume that their needs are different or the same. Just kind of summarizing on some typical social, emotional, and cultural challenges from many of these families that has been seen in this journey are like poverty, proper identification, education and age and grade level, cultural and social adaptation. So all these are like common challenges that immigrant families face when they come here. Like even those families who are very wealthy, when they come here, like immediately to start their life, they do not have the same thing. So everybody has to go through some kind of challenges when you come and when you immigrate to a new country. Another perspective that we focused a lot in our work is focusing on the whole child approach. And for that, we really like Uri Bunfenberner's bioecological model to answer some of our questions, because this model, which is conceptualized that individuals are nested within their multiple systems, interacting systems, really allows us to understand that, immigrants who we think are alone in this, but they are also longing for these nested systems, or they have some way connection to some of these nested systems, or they're already placed in this nested system. So as soon as a student comes in, they are placed in schools, the school becomes their nest, they are in a neighborhood, and they are in an economic situation. So things are already nested into their lives. But the best part is that this model, we like it because it seeks to understand individuals having agency so that they can respond to their social systems, and that people may use resources to thrive. So that's the reason because it's a very active model. To the way it looks at immigrants and refugees is much more active, that it's constantly that they have the ability to change the system and change their own selves to thrive in this new environment. They have lots of, resiliency, and that they have ability to act within their cultural, situations in the host society. And so these resources that are nested for the immigrant comes at, these needs of resources come in a very different phase and for different parts. Like, for example, somebody coming needs resources because if they have fled their country and they have come, they need to connect with families, because our refugee system is that family reunification. So as soon as they come, their immediate need is that, how can I connect with my remaining family members? Are they here? If they are not here, how do I bring them on board? So this system allows us to see at immigrants and those characteristics or those needs that they have as they come in, and at what's their way of coming to this country. And then again, as educators, we often need to understand that what we see and what we can't see. So what does culture include? Because oftentimes when we ask young people or we ask educators, they will always say, oh, culture is about food. I'm doing a cultural event for my new audiences. We are having live music. We are doing food. But that's just something that you can see about that immigrant. But there are many things in there that you cannot see. How is their, how is their cultural nuances, like such as conventions around eye contact or desire to appease, it sometimes can appease the educators that, oh, these youths are not connecting with us. They don't want to be part of this, but that's part of their culture, that they don't look up to you with their eyes, or they will not, when you're communicating with them, they will not look at you. So developing a knowledge about youth's culture and country of origin is also key in providing effective service, effective education to these audiences. So speaking same language can have a big difference. So, the representation is a big part of that. If you are planning to serve Spanish-speaking audiences or young people, if you have a staff member that speaks Spanish, that is the best thing ever, because that immediately connects the young people with that staff member. So that's huge help. And I think, again, another thing is that cultural competence also requires for that practitioners know the values that impact their profession. For example, youth from Latin American cultures that practice familiarism or familismo or the loyalty towards their family may wish to consult family members before ending or taking up any leadership opportunities that you provide to them. So that does not mean that they are not independent of making decisions, but such decisions are made in the family context. So as educators, we need to understand that. And without the knowledge of such practice, educators might view that such behavior as codependent or that they are not independent in making their decisions. But, some of these decisions are made very interdependently within some of the families that come to this country. And finally, if you think about practitioners and educators should be familiar with the barriers of accessing for care also in many immigrant and refugee families that we want to serve. Consider the delivering services in non-traditional settings to reach these audiences. Like, for example, if the children are comfortable coming to the school setting, that would be a great place to serve or to provide your programming. These barriers include busy schedules of parents. Parents, to maintain their livelihood, sometimes will work 3-4 jobs. And that does not mean that they don't care for their children. So we need to be open to understanding some of these needs. And also cost and lack of transportation to all of these things, So because it really needs disruptive of work from school, and so they do not have that support. They do not have that social capital that some of us have when living in this country for so long. So we need to pay attention to those needs before thinking that, these people are not engaging with us. Another model or approach that we encourage staff to do or participate with, it's called the community integration model of refugee resettlement. So in my past life, I was also the refugee specialist for Iowa State. And this is when I was exposed to this model because the resettlement agencies use this model very much to do their work, because they feel that they do not have to provide sufficiency to the immigrant and to the refugee communities by themselves. So they connect and work with all these service providers. So a collaboration of these service providers actually create a lot of thriving community for the new comers to this country. So it really provides, because the issues are not isolated, that a student who is having challenges with their paperwork obviously cannot have a thriving experience in the classroom or cannot have a good experience when they're going in for medical care. So if all these service providers in your community can work together, that really creates a thriving community or welcoming community for the refugee and immigrant population in your community. And it may allow you much more of a space to work with them. So I had this question: if you use a framework that you really like to understand or to do your work with refugee and immigrant community, please share with us so we can also review that and use that in our work. And if others also are thinking to use some of those work, please do share in your chat, or if you are comfortable using the slide, then that's fine too. Thank you.
We'd love to see models from outside of the US.
Yeah, exactly, because there's so much to learn in those models. And I think I particularly like the models that even UNESCO and all those agencies do. Those are so powerful and sometimes so it impacts you to think differently about approaching your work.
There was a question from Kamaya, and I apologize if I did not pronounce that correct, Kamaya. But she asks, what are some strategies to help educators and others develop culturally competence and cultural humility lens. And I put some of our responses there that we'll talk a few minutes about some specific strategies. But I also mentioned, Kamaya, we've taken the approach that there's only so much we can do as state authorities, as administrators, as educators. All staff need to do some self-discovery and do some of the work on their own to build relationships and through experiential learning, learn about their audience and also explore their own attitudes and competencies. We found that's the most effective long-term way for staff to really embrace working with this audience.
Thank you, Mitch, for starting the conversation. I think some of those things he will elaborate more, like what are the ways staff can work on themselves and also on the things. But, like I have listed some of the promising practices that has worked really well in the work. At least some of the work that we're trying to present here is, paying attention to the strengths and the challenges is the key. And again, focusing on the whole child approach rather than looking at the single story or the single occurrence of young people. So looking at like what's their ethnic and racial identities and connecting with their parents and caregivers is huge because, like when you are gone through such a traumatic journey to come to this country, you are not going to let your children engage with anybody because you're scared. You're scared of the system. You're scared of outsiders. You want to hold your children to your heart and keep them with you. So again, connecting with the parents and caregivers is very important in this if you're trying to work with young people. And then understanding the effects of trauma in the engagement. Again, like, as Mitch was suggesting, like breaking down the stereotypes that we hold and also creating the pathway by breaking down the stereotypes for them. And again, our programming needs to be culturally responsive and intentional so that we can really be intentional in what we are doing, why we are doing, and for whom we are doing. And constantly asking ourselves, who is this programming meant for and why? Did they ask for it or is it going to help them in some ways? And then again, extension or any youth development organization should serve as a resource for these audiences, create access for education and opportunities, create welcoming spaces, and a lot of the time creating be like a wraparound service provider. Like one example is like the VITA tax, forms, like tax forms, like for refugees and immigrants. Many times they do not know how to do it. Extension offices open their spaces to complete the tax forms during February and March, so that refugees and immigrants can come to their offices and complete this process without much of a hassle. So I think Mitch, take it away.
So the question was asked earlier, how are we building capacity of staff? And it's a big question. In our organization, there's over 3,000 staff from, Guam to the Virgin Islands to Maine. Some are living in the most rural parts of our country. Some are in the cities. We have staff working with immigrants who are children in Silicon Valley of tech experts, and we have staff working with undocumented youth who just came across the border in South Texas. So how do we build the capacity of so many people in so many ways? And we were just talking a little bit about how we have our limitations. We can only do so much, and we put the expectation that staff do self-discovery. But our group was also tasked with specific ways of helping staff. So this is some of what we did. Go ahead and forward the slide. So again, we talked about the limitations. Our goal is to provide input while expecting faculty and staff to do their own discovery. Go ahead and move to the next slide. All right. One of the areas that one of the steps we did was create fact sheets, and we'll share the link to these fact sheets. They're available. But these fact sheets for us were about working directly with youth and families from immigrant, refugee, and asylum-seeking families. And instead of talking about specific instances where every staff needs to be aware of the hijab or Ramadan or Eid is coming up and what you do in that situation, we talked about more general categories that every immigrant and refugee youth or almost every family would encounter. We refer to them as social conditions, common social conditions. And this is more of a kind of a checklist for staff to start their process of self-discovery. So we have these fact sheets, and our group is part of a larger group that looks at other populations that might need staff development as well. So we also have fact sheets about working with families in poverty, about working with different demographic populations, sexual orientations, and gender identities. So we'll share those and go ahead with the next.
I think I already did.
Okay. This is about a 7-page fact sheet. There we go. We also created a series of webinars where us or guests, they're each about an hour long, and you can access those via YouTube channel. And this was just to come up with more specific areas that staff might need help with. How do you market successfully and appropriately to our audience? Recruitment, how do you design educational programs and evaluate those programs from a lens of an immigrant, refugee, or asylum-seeking family? So we'll share both of those.
There's this Thrive model thing that we did the critique of, Mitch.
Oh, yes. So I didn't mention that. Another task of our group that helps staff across the country is we're often asked to critique frameworks, models, educational designs that are nationwide, and we look at them from a lens of an immigrant and refugee youth family. So we help tweak the information that's spread across the country using the lens of our audience. Go ahead. And Nicole, I see your question. I'm going to ask that next. And the results of this is that staff out there are doing programs that resonate and meet the needs of all youth, including immigrant and refugee families. So I'm going to share some successes of our colleague in Indiana because she's had so much success and we love her programs. Soccer for Success has been a program that has resonated with families, especially those coming from, I think, Central Latin America. And there's a large Burmese population in that area. And this is a collaboration with U.S. Soccer Foundation. And how this is different, instead of just starting a soccer league, it's really about engaging families in health and nutrition and physical education, and also helping them become acculturated and comfortable with the new country. So they use soccer as an excuse to get the families involved with other topics. Go ahead to the next slide. Teen Teaching, Imagine Science and Teen Teaching is a program in Indiana, but Teen Teaching, which is using teenagers to teach younger kids about a topic that's important, has really worked across the country to engage immigrant and refugee youth in their community. And one of the reasons it's worked, we've done research on this, is that teaching is a fairly universal topic. Everyone can imagine what it's like to teach their younger brother or sister something. At the same time, it often helps older youth practice their English by teaching in the community, and it helps them understand and learn about different aspects of their community by being engaged. Here in Maine, we have a really active teen teaching program. Many of our most recent newcomers come from Angola, Congo, historically from Somalia, and they've really, there's been a lot of interest from that population in doing this. So the other reason it helps is if they speak Portuguese or Lingala or French, they can help out with younger kids who are brand new newcomers, which the staff may not be able to do. So one more. And then another example is an expo. In Indiana, they had a Latino Expo to help families understand all the resources available, understand how to be more involved, or to use the skills and assets they bring with them in the community. And these are just 3 examples of what staff have done based on our inclusion and belonging efforts. So if you can go to the next slide. Oh, I would just ask actually before that, if you have any examples of things you've done in your community using belonging and inclusion in things that your staff have done, please share that in the chat box. And now I'm going to turn it over, I believe, to Marilu.
Yes. So throughout our sessions, our webinar series, we were able to collect some feedback from participants. And here are just a few that were shared. We have a whole list of them, but we couldn't fit them all into this presentation. Ani, can you advance? So these were some of the ones that I thought were speaking to this presentation. They agree with most of you that said, the importance of cultural humility, and then also creating transparent, welcoming spaces, designing programs that are intentional to connect with migrant communities. Mental health was a big one, mental health issues and how they affect future generations. And then also making sure that we build partnerships with the communities that exist within their residents and making positive connections with those communities as well. And now we have.
Marilu, can I go back? I'm sorry, I promised Nicole that we would, I think it's Nicole, that we would respond to their question in the chat box. And the question is, have any of your organizations had success with incentivizing or rewarding self-work for cultural humility? And I know the Intercultural Development Inventory Project in Maine has been one example that I can share. I'll share a link to their national website, but I wanted to open that up for any other responses. What are ways that staff are rewarded for doing this work?
I think the other thing would be like giving professional development allowances are a great way that, even to do the IDI, that's like such an expensive examination. So if you are doing work in that, probably that will be much more of a rewarding thing, will come up more in future. Because I know Nicole, she is one of our great assets in Iowa, and she does great work with Immigrant and Refugee Youth. And so I think they see her as a leader and I did the local branch of what we are doing nationally, and she was one of my great team members. So thank you, Nicole, for that question. Yeah.
One of the topics we're not talking about in this session, because we haven't tackled it, is bringing in administration and higher level folks into this world. And I think that touches on the rewarding. I think that might answer the question, what are they doing to incentivize and reward this hard work? And I don't have an answer, but it's a great question.
Yeah, but that's the question we also asked our co-chairs, because we, in the national level that, how are you rewarding the people who are doing the work for you? So we've not had an answer yet. So thank you. Okay, Marilu, take it away.
Yeah, so again, as part of the evaluation, we thought we'd get feedback from you. Next. So these are 4 questions that we have for you. So one is, what is one new idea you relearned today that made that light bulb go off, or your aha moment? Share examples of programs that have been successful in engaging immigrant community, parents, and youth, and what can you do to leverage these resources? And the last one is, were there topics that you were expecting to learn and you did not hear us touch on them?
Kindly respond to these questions, because it really allows us and helps us to kind of develop more work that we can do or provide more finesse in the work we do.
I've added the link in the chat if you want, or also put it in the chat, or just open your mic.
I also added someone had asked the links to the YouTube webinars. So I added that link in the chat box as well to the playlist.
And Rosa, thank you for sharing this helpful. Hack Your Future.
That example that Rosa put in reminds me of the legislation in our state right now. We're really trying hard to make it easier for asylum seekers to be able to move into the workforce quicker. Mostly because it provides help for them and what they need to do, but it also brings all their assets and skills into our workforce. Right now, there's a 6 month to 2 year lag between when they can get their work permit. So hopefully that legislation will go through and they can be working as computer programmers and health techs and accountants.
Yeah, please respond to these questions. They're really helpful for us in kind of thinking about how else we need to focus on, what resources we need to create, and what has been helpful, how we can improve the work we are doing. And I think the last question is very important for us, like, something that you're hoping to learn and you did not hear, so that we can work on those also. And we so much appreciate you all joining us today and asking and participating with us in the chat and responding to our questions. We really appreciate that.
And if you have any questions, you can open your mic now.
Yeah. Marilu, if you can read at least from the first one, if folks have shared anything, it would be nice.
Yes. So for question number 1, what is one idea you learned? To inquire, understand on the beliefs, social expectations, values under the surface of cultural artifacts. And they appreciate us sharing the models. For number 2, share programs, examples of programs. Somebody said it's a school-based program. Love the student, peer teacher example you shared, great opportunity. And then making educational connections and supporting families. For number 3, somebody said, what resources and assets do immigrant parents, youth bring that would benefit our community, and invite parents and youth to share their cultural and experiences with their communities. For number 4, great session, gave me lots of ideas about new frameworks and resources to help in the professional development of staff supporting refugees and immigrants.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think there is also information in the chat, like after the session, we will include all those your responses into the slide. And when you are going to access the slide, you can see people's response, and you can also come up with ideas and solutions to work with these group of people.
But I'd like to also thank you all for participating, and we're hoping that you are walking away with at least one idea to put in place with the migrant community, and then share an idea that will help us move forward with our work.
And thank you to MIT for hosting us.
Yeah, and I think we've given our email address. So in case if you all need any training or anything, we would be happy to come to your campus or to your organization to provide training, how to build competency and capacity for your staff.
And that's a great question, Tom. Does Hack Your Future accept applicants outside Brussels and Antwerp? Mentoring programs are amazing.
Okay, that's amazing. Like, I wanted to know because I'm attending this particular summit far from where you guys are, and at the moment I'm in the Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya, South Sudanese probably. So, I saw it's an opportunity which most organizations are trying to actually initiate here in Kakuma, in terms of trying to make sure that students who are finished school at least need to have this tech skills so that they can access opportunities online and work to be self-reliant. So opportunities like these ones are really rare for us here to get. So when I see one of it like this, it really motivates me a lot, and see it as an opportunity to jump into it, and maybe if it is possible. That's why I'm asking that question.
Yeah.
Did you say Kakuma? Are you in the refugee camp community?
Yeah, exactly. I'm in a refugee camp community.
Yeah, I think one of
In
the
fact,
at
I'm a
least one of the
refugee.
kids in those pictures may have been born and raised there. Just so you know.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think providing, guidelines about, coming to the US is important, but providing them much more learning in their own language can be very beneficial. But I also know that at least I am in the college setting and I have many student workers with me who are from Kenya and they speak pretty good English. And so, just providing that knowledge about their own country and how they can, provide support to their own people is the first number one way of connecting and engaging, in a broader, but like knowing the local to engage in a broader level is very powerful.
Yeah, that's really important. That's really important, Andita, right there. So most of us who are here in the camp, some of them have really made it and completed their high school. So getting tertiary education like college, university is a little bit very challenging, and because scholarships here are really few. That's why organization here in the camp are trying as much as possible, at least to bring the necessary skills like IT skills, the programming skills that are at least marketable online, so that at least the student can get, let's say, remote work, which are still rare. It's still an opportunity that need to be grabbed. So for those who have no skills, it's a little bit challenging. So trainings need to be conducted in the first place. So actually, I can say resettlement has been very hard. So they are really trying as much as they can to.
I can tell you one thing, that if I'm in College of Design, so if students who are interested in art, design, architecture, graphic design, and who have completed at least 12th grade, just email me. My email address is there, then we can definitely connect.
Yeah, that's important. Okay, just to introduce myself, I forgot to introduce myself in the first place. Actually, me personally, I'm working as an INS coach with JRS here in the camp. So I managed to complete my diploma online with Regis University through JWL, like JC World Learning. So currently, I'm still looking for more opportunities, and the students are normally helped around. Like in my working place, I have around 30 students with different ambitions on who they wanted to be. So when we mention graphic design architect, there are some of the students, I can say maybe around 5 or 7 who are interested in maybe graphic design, web development, and other aspects of just other subjects probably. So thank you so much, and I'll really appreciate it. We'll link up and I'll email you, then maybe we can get to see how far we can go and help these particular students.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome.
And so it's wonderful to see these kinds of connections. And I just want to thank Mitchell, Anita, and Mara Lou for this really rich presentation, which I think gives all of us, kind of new frameworks and strategies for, how to develop really culturally responsive and supportive kind of wraparound supports for refugee and migrant youth. So thank you again.